want you to do on 7-4. So read the section first. Okay, I want you to read the first 4 pages carefully and then skim the rest. So first 4 pages, read carefully and then skim the rest of that. Look at your homework, and if you can do the homework, great. If not, find an example in the section that's similar to whatever homework problem you're trying to do. Okay? I think you're going to be able to find an example that's similar to most of the homework problems except for 9, 63, and 64. Okay? So when you get to problem number 9, think about what shape you'd have if the inequality were replaced with an equal sign. So when you get to 9, replace the inequality with an equal sign and see if you can remember what shape that would be. Okay? On 63 and 64, read example 9 in the textbook. Okay? It's similar, but you might need to change a few things in order to figure it out. Okay? So most of the problems I think are going to be pretty slick. You can have the rest of the time to work on it. If you've got a question, holler. I'll help you. But if you could send 8.1 to the center and all the way to the front, I'll grade those while you're working today. Okay? Okay. Can I get your attention for just 1 second?
I think C works.
Okay. Let's say I had to graph that inequality. And let's say I had to graph this one. Yeah, so we're going to graph this. It's going to be what shape? It's going to be a line, right? So if I move the x to the other side, this is what I get. I get y, whoops, let me change colors here. I get y is greater than negative x plus 2. If that were an equal sign, it would be a line that crosses where on the y-axis? The y-intercept is 2, so it would cross at 2. What's the slope? Negative 1. So I'd go 1, 2. It's going to cross right here. If it were an equal sign, I'd make a solid line that goes like this. This is an inequality, though. So one of the questions is not only do you have to figure out what shape it is, you have to figure out is it solid or dotted. Is this solid or dotted? Dotted. Why? Okay, because there's no line underneath, because it says it can't actually equal those two things. This can't equal that. So I'm going to do a dotted line right here. Okay, now, how do you decide which way you shade? Okay, you can look at the inequality. You can pick a point. There are lots of different things. I find the easiest thing to do is this. Okay, this is y is greater than. Which direction does the y-axis run? It runs up and down, right? So put your pencil on the line, and then this says y is greater than. If y is greater than, would I go up or down? I'd go up, so I'm going to be on this side of the line, so I'm going to shade this right here. Yeah. Okay, listen up. When do you change the direction of the inequality? If two things can do that. Multiply or divide by a negative. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to switch the direction. Let's take a look at this one right here. Everybody watch, please. Okay, if this was x equals 1, first of all, we went over this numerous times. What type of line is this? It's a vertical line. It tells you that x has to be 1. Okay, solid or dotted? Solid. So x has to be 1, y can be anything you want. So it looks like this. Okay? Now, the x, notice how read from the variable, x is greater than 1. X runs in the horizontal direction, so it isn't a question of whether we go up or down, it's a question of whether we go right or left. Okay? And because it's greater than, we're going to go to the right, so it would be that part there that's shaded. Okay? I don't think we have any compound inequalities. We do that in the next section. Okay? Or are there any compound inequalities in this one? Do you have more than one to graph at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Where would this overlap? If this said and, then we'd have to check this. It would be this stuff right here. So it would be from here down to here, over to there. It would be all of this stuff. And we'd want to make sure that we were doing a solid line here and a dotted line for the border right there. Okay? Does that work? Okay. Again, you can tell where you're going to shade by the greater than or less than. If it's a y, the question is up or down. If it's an x, the question is right or left. You can put your pencil on the line and then go either up or down, right or left, depending on which variable you're using. Okay? I want to show you, I've changed the calendar just a little bit, but let me show you what's going to take us to the end of the quarter. The quarter ends at the end of March. So we're sitting here on, where are we? Thursday the 27th. So we're covering 7-4 today. We're going to cover 7-5 tomorrow, review on Monday, and then we're going to have the test on Tuesday. And then we're going to cover 8-2 over 2 days, which I think would be very manageable. And if we can, we might even cover a little bit of 8-4 on Thursday. Finish that up. My goal is to have you out of here on Friday, pretty much done with everything. Then we've got spring break. And then when you come back, we'll talk about 8-4 again a little bit, just review it, maybe review some of these ideas in 8-2. And then we'll finish up 8-5, or chapter 8 with 8-5 and 8-3. Review here, and then we'll have another exam on the 25th of March, okay? And then that really is going to be the last and best opportunity to change your grade for third quarter, because the quarter ends right here, okay? So we'll have a test next week, and then one the end of the month, and then the quarter ends on the 28th, and then we're going to do chapter 9 and chapter 10, or at least parts of it. And we're also going to do things to prepare for the state test. I think you've been doing some stuff in English on the SAGE testing and stuff like that. The math I've looked at a little bit. It looks kind of interesting. I think if you've been paying attention and using your head, I think you'll be just fine on that. But we'll do some practice with that sort of stuff so you feel like you're well prepared. We'll talk about some probabilities, some statistics, and things like that. Shouldn't be too bad, okay? So just keep that in mind. That's what the next couple of weeks represent. Test on chapter 7, test on chapter 8, okay? A type of problem like 63. So if we look at this, this gives you a demand and supply function for a certain type of calculator or product or whatever. So if you graph each one of these, X is the number of units, in this case it's the number of calculators, and P is the price. And then what they can do here is they can figure out the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So there's too much for the consumer and too much for the producer right here, if you wanted to think of it that way, I suppose. And it says the consumer surplus is the area of a triangle. So we figure out how wide this is and how tall this is, and it's actually a dollar amount, okay? So if we figure out how many units there are, okay, horizontally, that's like the width of this triangle right here, and we figure out how tall this is, we figure out the area of this triangle on the top, that's the consumer surplus, and we figure out the area of this triangle on the bottom, that's the producer surplus, okay? Those are what those calculations are right there. And in order to find that, what's the most important point on this graph right here? That point of equilibrium, right? That point right there. And once you find that, it takes this area that we would shade in right here and breaks it into two triangles. Yeah.
How do you know how far left to go with the triangle? Like, to know the height or the base?
The base right here? Well, it would be from here to the point where they intersect.
Like, okay.
So once you find the point of equilibrium, you should have all the pieces you need. Okay?